Hello, nice to see you all, even if it's just this virtual exchange. I'm Tim Smith. I'm really honored to be with you to celebrate these 4 decades of work that SRIC and its members have put into. You have been patient, committed. You've had the endurance of the long distance runner in this work. And of course, and we'll discuss this today, a pattern of effectiveness. And isn't this a perfect blend with the 50th anniversary of ICCR? Well, actually, it's the 51st now because we couldn't get together in the 50th year. So we had our virtual celebration in this year. It's tremendous to be able to point to the work you've done in your region, blended with the work that religious investors and now other types of investors have done together through ICCR for these many, many decades. As you know, I worked at ICCR from the beginning, and therefore I can still remember the days in which then Texas CRI sent a representative to our meeting to attend and participate and join. And Sister Susan Mika was a brave soul who came in and learned all the ways and strategies and actions we are taking, and then of course became a national leader on issues like maquiladoras, not only galvanizing the work in Texas, but also national religious investors who joined together in a mighty coalition to raise the issue of maquiladora workers and the challenges they faced. So I want to give a tribute to the fact that you've been an energetic, active advocate on such a wide range of issues. So I hope you can pause and celebrate that. And persistence does pay off, doesn't it? I mean, there's multiple stories you're going to tell to each other, but also you'll see on ICCR's website as they look at their arc of history, dealing with the many issues that they have given leadership on. But one stands out for me because Sister Susan will remember well the first time she and others addressed Home Depot on the issue of equal employment opportunity disclosure. Our company was involved in co-sponsoring those early days, as I understand it. It's a sign of how persistence pays off, because Home Depot said, no, we can't disclose that information. And the lawyers had told them not to do it. But here we go, 2 decades later, a little longer, and suddenly the religious voices are blended with New York City pension funds, no small investor, who are asking Home Depot in the wake of the tragic death of George Floyd to disclose their diversity information. And suddenly the company says, we can and we will do that. Persistence pays off. But our work is not always successful. You all know that. And it's not always impactful. So sometimes we are prophets outside the gates, speaking truth to power. And other times we were invited inside the boardrooms to exchange views and have a dialogue with companies and try to seek common ground. And I would just want to say it's a particular skill to be able to both be a powerful prophetic voice and also be able to be an effective negotiator with companies. It's a blend of skills that are important to have and are not often seen. It uses different parts of the brain, doesn't it? So it also takes a number of skills to juggle all the various issues you work on, from diversity to human rights, from climate change to political spending and lobbying, and the list goes on. Your newsletter is full of recitations of the work that has been done over the decades. And you've also worked on public policy issues, like the important work right now with the Securities Exchange Commission, as we try to support their proposed rule to require companies to disclose vitally important climate information. So that's a special skill as well. So that leads me to say we do deserve a moment to look back and pause and take a deep breath and give some pats on the back to the faithful witness that we have had in the marketplace. But then to replenish our strength, rebuild our energies, and go back into these engagements that are so important as we try to change companies' policies and practices. Because these issues that we work on are not going away, are they? They're still alive and well. So while I'm a big fan of the work your coalition's done on a whole range of issues, today I was asked to focus a little bit on the issue of lobbying and political spending, and to make that as a case in point that I talk to while others talk about some of the other issues where you've been so involved. On lobbying, you might remember that investors have been knocking on the doors of companies to urge them to be transparent about how their monies are spent to try to influence public policy and how to influence legislation and regulations. So since 2011, investors, religious investors through ICCR and other investors concerned about this issue have worked together to file over 500 resolutions urging companies to do lobbying reports. We've had some success, although it's also a challenge. A lot of companies are quite uncomfortable disclosing much information about their trade associations that they work with. But in 2022, we have 42 resolutions that were filed and 28 are going to a vote. And last year, the average vote for our resolutions on lobbying disclosure was 39%, a big boost over the earlier years. 39% with 25 proposals. 4 of them got votes over 50%. It was that significant. One of them, to FedEx, got a vote of 64%. So why are we concerned about what companies do on lobbying? Well, there's a number of reasons. We're concerned about the disconnect or the misalignment. They say one thing, and yet maybe their government affairs office or their trade associations are going in a different direction, taking the money of a company, its dues payments and so on, and directing that into lobbying, for example, to block climate legislation, while the company says we stand for vigorous policies on climate. Also, we know that companies have the power to lobby positively on key issues, that their voice and their power is meaningful in these public debates. So we are encouraging them to, of course, take a positive stand. And then we also are well aware that their trade associations or groups like the American Legislative Exchange Council may well be involved in taking steps that would undercut our work on things like climate change. So these are reasons why we need to be concerned about how companies are involved in the public policy sphere and how their money, which is shareholder money, corporate money that is shareholder money, may be used by third parties to undercut legislation on issues, like I said, on climate. So important work that has been done together and will be continued. But this year we can point to a chapter 2, a very important revitalized focus on what we are calling climate lobbying. And ICCR actually has a staff person working full-time on this issue, demonstrating the importance that we all see to the issue of how companies are using their voice and their influence to impact climate policy. So these resolutions, which were over 20 of them were filed with companies this year, have had some pretty positive success. The issue is alive and well in Europe and Canada, other countries as well. And in Europe, we've seen numerous companies pause and assess their climate-related lobbying, both what they do and their trade associations, and and publish reports on what the results of that assessment was. So that's what we've been asking companies here to do too. Please look at your climate lobbying, assess it, look at what each trade association or not-for-profit is doing in trying to lobby on climate policy, and report on what the results are going to be. Well, over 20 companies have agreed to do this. Now, some of them are doing it first time, just getting their feet wet, but they've nonetheless agreed to start the journey of reporting on climate lobbying. And others have actually done reports, like Exxon's done a report recently. Others have expanded their climate lobbying report too. So this is very important. And why? Because this is a timely ask. We really hope and expect that there will be new legislation on climate change put before the Congress, and also at the state and city level too, so that the voice of companies is exceedingly important to join in and call for reasonable legislation. It's also very important that these same companies say to their trade associations, like the Chamber of Commerce, that they do not want them to try to block this legislation, nor do they want them to sue to block key legislation on climate change. One particular example is the Securities Exchange Commission now has this rule proposed that is inviting public comment that would require companies to disclose meaningful information on their greenhouse gas emissions and steps they're taking to reduce it. So awfully important now not to have somebody like the Chamber of Commerce step up and run a campaign against that rule or even sue the SEC to block it. So the timing is key. And that's why the voice of investors knocking on companies' doors saying, we need you to pay attention to this is so important. There are other regulations going to be coming up too, say on methane regulation. So again, awfully important for companies to be able to say, we support meaningful regulation to require disclosure and plans to reduce methane, which is such a toxic greenhouse gas. So this is another key issue for the investor community this year, working through ICCR, working through your coalition. I want to thank you for all the work you've done on these issues, and of course, applaud you for the work that you've done for these 4 decades, being a beacon of light as you raise these important corporate social responsibility issues with companies, making boardrooms pay attention to the social bottom line and not just the financial bottom line. Thanks. I wish I was there with you. Have a good celebration.